On the morning of June 7, 1992, in the heart of America's Bible Belt, the city of Springfield, Missouri, woke up to a day that was supposed to be like any other, but it wasn't. That morning marked the beginning of a dark, enduring mystery that would cast a long shadow over the community for decades to come. From one house, 3 women, a mother, her daughter, and her daughter's best friend, vanished into thin air. There were no signs of a struggle, no witnesses to a crime, and no answers to be found. They would become known as the Springfield Three, and their story remains one of America's most baffling and heartbreaking unsolved cases. This is not just a story of a disappearance. It is the story of a city's lingering wound and a silence that has haunted 3 families for a lifetime. At the center of this enigma are 3 women whose lives were irrevocably frozen in time after that fateful night. To understand the mystery, we must first understand them. Sherrill Levitt. Sherrill was 47 years old, a vibrant and independent woman with a passion for her craft. She was a professional cosmetologist, working at a local salon where she was more than just a hairstylist to her clients. She was a confidant, a friend. As a single mother, she had single-handedly raised her only daughter, Suzie, who was the absolute center of her world. Friends and family describe her as hardworking, fiercely independent, and a deeply loving mother. Her small home on Delmar Street was her sanctuary, a place she kept immaculate and filled with warmth. Suzie Streeter, Sherrill's daughter. 19-year-old Suzie was a young woman on the cusp of adulthood, her eyes full of dreams for dispute, her eyes full of dreams for the future. She had just graduated from Kickapoo High School. Suzie was as vivacious as her mother, with a streak of rebellious, free-spirited energy. Her curly blonde hair and radiant smile were unforgettable. Following in her mother's footsteps, she planned to study cosmetology and become a hairdresser. Her friends remember her as a loyal and fun-loving soul, someone who wasn't afraid to bend the rules, but who had a heart of gold. Stacy McCall. Stacy was Suzie's best friend. At 18, she had also just graduated alongside Suzie. She was the quieter, more reserved of the two. Stacy was known for being studious, thoughtful, and deeply devoted to her family. Her parents, Janice and Stu McCall, were immensely proud of her and her plans to attend college to study psychology. Stacy and Suzie were inseparable, a perfect balance to one another. Where Suzie was the whirlwind, Stacy was the calm. The lives of these 3 women, like 3 separate rivers, were flowing towards their own futures. But on the night of June 6, 1992, all 3 rivers converged at a single, tragic point. The final night, June 6, 1992, it was a Saturday, and the air in Springfield was filled with a celebratory buzz of graduation. Students from Kickapoo High were marking the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. Suzie and Stacy were swept up in the excitement. After the official ceremony, Suzie and Stacy attended several graduation parties with their friends. Their original plan was to drive to a friend's house in nearby Branson and spend the night there. As the night wore on, filled with laughter, stories, and plans for the summer, they stayed out late. Around 2 a.m., they made a last-minute change of plans. Instead of making the trip to Branson, they decided it would be easier to just go back to Suzie's house. It was closer, and they were likely tired from the long day of festivities. They drove Suzie's car to 1717 East Delmar Street. At that time, Sherrill was likely already at home, fast asleep, resting for a Sunday she had plans for. Suzie and Stacy entered the house. Perhaps they washed their faces, changed their clothes, and collapsed into bed, exhausted but happy. That was the last time anyone ever saw them. After that moment, time in that house seemed to stop, and a deafening silence took hold. June 7, 1992. Morning. The sun rose over Springfield, and the city began a new day. But at the house on Delmar Street, there was no movement, no sound. Stacy's mother, Janice McCall, was growing anxious. Stacy was a responsible daughter and had promised to call. When the morning stretched on with no word from her, Janice's maternal instinct told her something was wrong. Around 9 a.m., Janice and a friend arrived at Suzie's home. The first thing they noticed was that both Sherrill's and Suzie's cars were parked neatly in the driveway. This offered a brief moment of relief. They must just be sleeping in late. Janice walked to the front door and knocked. Once, twice. No answer. She tried the doorknob. It was unlocked. This was the first red flag. Sherrill was meticulous about locking her doors. Janice stepped inside. The house was unnervingly quiet. She was still hoping to find the girls sound asleep, but an eerie stillness hung in the air. In the living room, the television was on, its screen filled with the white noise of static, as if someone had been watching it and simply vanished. She walked further in. On a counter lay Sherrill's, Suzie's, and Stacy's purses, side by side. Their wallets, cash, car, keys, everything was there, untouched. It looked as though they had just stepped out and would be back any second. Makeup was on the bathroom counter, as if Suzie and Stacy had started to remove it after their night out. Sherrill's eyeglasses rested on top of a book she'd been reading. Her pack of cigarettes was on the table, unopened. The family's pet dog, a little Yorkshire Terrier named Cinnamon, was pacing anxiously, yapping at Janice's feet, clearly distressed. But the most disturbing thing was what wasn't there. No sign of a struggle. No overturned furniture, no broken glass, no screams heard by neighbors. Just a profound, chilling silence. Janice called out their names. Stacy, Suzie, Sherrill. Voice echoed back from the empty walls. She checked the bedrooms. They were empty. The beds looked as if they had been slept in, but their occupants were gone. A cold dread washed over Janice. She knew, with gut-wrenching certainty, that something was terribly wrong. The first mistake of the investigation. In a state of panic, Janice called another friend. Soon, a small crowd of the girls, friends, and concerned family members began to gather at the house. Not understanding the gravity of the situation, and, with the best of intentions, they began to tidy up. They wiped down the makeup on the counter. They straightened the bed sheets. While looking for clues, Janice noticed a message on the answering machine. She played it. The message was strange, described later as containing a sexual innuendo. But in her distress, she accidentally erased it before it could be heard again. By the time the police were finally called and arrived that afternoon, the house was no longer a crime scene. It had been contaminated. As many as 20 people had walked through it, touching surfaces, moving objects, and unknowingly destroying what might have been the only physical evidence: hair, fingerprints, DNA that could have solved the case. The golden hours of the investigation were lost forever. The police weren't met with a pristine scene of a crime, but with a clean, tidy house that only deepened the mystery. The police investigation began. But they were starting with almost nothing. No bodies, no ransom note, no witnesses. It was a case that baffled investigators from the very beginning. Initially, police considered the possibility that the women had left voluntarily. But that theory quickly fell apart. Why would they leave behind their cars, their money, their purses, and even their beloved pet? For Stacy, who was so close to her family, leaving without a word was completely out of character. The investigation soon shifted to a theory of abduction. But who would do this, and why? The search for a witness. Police canvassed the neighborhood, interviewing everyone. But no one had seen or heard anything unusual that night. No screams, no sounds of a struggle, no suspicious vehicles. Only one neighbor reported something potentially significant. She recalled seeing a strange van in the area around 2:15 a.m. She couldn't remember the model or see a license plate. This mystery van would become a recurring but ultimately unprovable lead in the case. The role of the media, the story of the Springfield Three quickly spread from local news to the national stage. It was featured on popular television shows like America's Most Wanted and Unsolved Mysteries. A flood of tips poured in from all over the country. Police chased down thousands of leads, but most were dead ends, based on speculation or false hope. Through it all, the families of the women showed incredible strength. Janice and Stu McCall, along with Sherrill's relatives, became tireless advocates. They appeared on television, held press conferences, and pleaded for any information. Their faces etched with a pain that never subsided. Their efforts are a major reason why this case has never been forgotten. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months, and months into years. But there was no breakthrough. A dark cloud of fear and suspicion settled over Springfield. Gay City once, known for its safety, now harbored a terrifying secret. In the absence of hard evidence, theories and suspects proliferate. The case of the Springfield Three is no exception. Over the years, several compelling theories and persons of interest have emerged, each adding another layer of complexity to the mystery. Theory 1. Robert Craig Cox. The shadow of a killer. One of the most prominent suspects in this case is Robert Craig Cox, a convicted murderer and kidnapper. In 1995, while imprisoned in Texas for another crime, Cox told a journalist that he knew what happened to the three women. Cox claimed he was in Springfield on the morning of June 7, 1992. He alleged that Suzie and Stacy were already dead and buried in a place where they would never be found. He hinted that Sherrill was killed separately. He gave cryptic clues, suggesting their bodies were buried near a church. But when pressed for more details, he would go silent, toying with investigators. He famously told them they'll never be found. He also stated he would not reveal the full story until the women were officially declared dead. How credible was his claim? Cox had a violent past, had lived in Missouri, and had worked construction near the Delaware Street house. He had the means, motive, and opportunity to be a strong suspect. But no physical evidence has ever linked him to the crime. He has changed his story multiple times. Many believe Cox is a manipulative narcissist, playing a cruel game with police and the family simply for the attention. Does he know the truth, or is he just a pathological liar? The question remains unanswered. Theory 2. Revenge and a broken porch light. Digging deeper, investigators uncovered another strange incident. A few months before the disappearance, Suzie and a friend had allegedly witnessed a local group of vandals desecrating graves in a cemetery. They considered reporting it to the police. Rumors circulated that Suzie and Sherrill had been receiving threats after this. The glass globe of their front porch light was mysteriously smashed 3 separate times. Each time, Sherrill replaced. It was broken again. This theory suggests that the vandals came to the house that night seeking revenge. They may have only intended to scare Suzie, but the situation escalated, leading to the abduction and murder of all 3 women. The mysterious, erased message on the answering machine could have been one of these threats. But the identities of these vandals were never confirmed, and so, this theory too remains trapped in the realm of possibility. Theory 3. The truth buried in concrete. Over the years, police received countless tips. The most dramatic lead came in 2007. A woman, claiming to be a psychic, contacted police with a vision. The bodies of the 3 women were buried beneath the concrete of a parking garage at Cox South Hospital in Springfield. While a psychic tip might seem far-fetched, it had a logical hook. The parking garage was under construction in the summer of 1992, at the exact time the women vanished. It would have been an ideal place to dispose of bodies, entombing them forever in concrete. A local crime reporter, Dennis Graves, pursued the lead relentlessly. He brought in an expert with ground-penetrating radar, GPR, a technology that can detect anomalies beneath the Earth's surface. With the nation's media watching, a section of the parking garage was scanned. The GPR detected 3 anomalies, roughly the size and shape of human graves. A wave of excitement and hope swept through Springfield. It seemed that, after 15 long years, the mystery was about to be solved. Police made the decision to drill into the concrete to investigate the anomalies. But after days of tense anticipation, the results were devastating. The drilling revealed that the anomalies were nothing more than construction debris or natural variations in the soil. There were no human remains. The hope was shattered. For the families and investigators, it was another soul-crushing setback. It felt as if the truth was taunting them, always just out of reach. Other suspects and rumors. Over the decades, other suspects have been investigated, including several serial killers who were active in the region at the time. All were questioned, but none could be definitively linked to the case. Locally, rumors swirled. Some whispered of drug connections, others of a planned escape to start a new life. But investigators found no evidence to support any of these claims. Every theory, every suspect, every lead has been a door that once opened revealed only an empty room. More than 30 years have now passed. The world has changed dramatically since that morning in 1992. Technology has made astounding leaps forward. DNA testing and forensic science are more powerful than ever. But the case of the Springfield Three remains frozen in time. The lives of those connected to the case have also been forever altered. Stacy's father, Stu McCall, passed away without ever knowing what happened to his daughter. Our mother, Janice, has channeled her grief into action, founding an organization to help other families of missing persons. The lines on her face tell a story of decades spent waiting for an answer that never came. Sherrill's mother also passed away, waiting until her final day for news of her daughter and granddaughter. For these families, the waiting has been a form of living torture. Every phone call, every knock on the door brings a flicker of hope, only to be extinguished again. The promise of new technology, investigators have not given up. A few pieces of potential evidence from the house, including strands of hair, are still preserved. There is a distant hope that modern DNA technology could one day pull a clue from these aging samples. A new generation of detectives, periodically, re-examines the case files, looking at every statement, every tip, with fresh eyes. They hope that the key to the puzzle lies hidden in the old information, something that was overlooked before. But time is their greatest enemy. Witnesses have died, memories have faded, and evidence has degraded. Why this case endures. The story of the Springfield Three resonates so deeply because it taps into a primal fear, the idea that you are not safe, even in your own home. There is no clear motive, no dramatic showdown. There is only an inexplicable void. 3 ordinary women, 1 ordinary night, 1 ordinary house, a combination that created an extraordinary mystery. And so, today, on internet forums, in podcasts, and across true crime communities, the case is still debated. People share their theories, hoping for a resolution. Because the human mind cannot rest with an unfinished story. We crave answers. 3 women, 1 ordinary house, and 1 night that became a lifetime of questions. This story has no clear villain. It has no hero's victory. It has only waiting and silence. Sherrill Levitt, whose world revolved around her daughter. Suzie Streeter, whose life was just beginning, full of youthful promise. And Stacy McCall, with a bright future ahead of her. What happened to them? What truly took place inside that house on Delaware Street? The answer to that question is likely held by 1 or more people. Someone who saw something, heard something, or has been carrying the weight of a terrible secret for over 3 decades. If someone out there knows something, it is time to speak. Because their families are still waiting. Their friends are still remembering. And the silence in Springfield still lingers. This is the story of the Springfield Three, an American mystery that refuses to be forgotten. Have a theory? Share it in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe for more true crime stories.